Hello, and welcome to the space where I spill the tea on what it means to be free when you have a brain that naturally wants to go into overthinking and anxiety and putting everything else before your own needs. And you have this thirst and this drive inside that you know that you are here for more, but this way of thinking is getting in the way. I'm going to spill the tea on all the different ways that we can step out of this overthinking nonsense into the heart and the soul so that you can seek the more that you know you have that drive to fill. So today, we are looking at the concept of that actually having that kind of mind that is obsessive and that is overthinking and that is anxious, but you can high function to such a point that when you actually share what's going on inside your brain, the people who love you are like, what? You're not okay? Like, what? I want to share how actually that gets to be a kind of fuel. That gets to be a kind of fire for manifesting that more that you know you're here to receive. And I know it sounds like madness because so much of our lives we have spent thinking, I remember being little and thinking, I can't wait to be a grown up so I don't feel this way. And little did little me know that actually it just gets worse. It compounds over time. But actually, when we start to look at the things that we've endured, the things that we've survived, the traumas, high functioning through anxiety, maybe you're like me, you have ADHD or autism or any kind of diagnosis to try and make sense of this overthinking way that you operate. What if, and this isn't for everyone, but what if we actually get to use all of that energy? It takes a lot of energy. What if that energy actually gets to be fired in a different way to mean that that heck of a lot of energy can be used as a vessel, as something that can allow you to connect to the universe in ways that most people won't ever be able to make the links. They're too consumed by their brain, or they have a more regular brain. What if there's a way that we can alchemize this energy and transform it into that more that you know that your next level is waiting for you? What if there's a way to do that? So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be showing you the process of how manifesting works and how actually having all of this surplus energy that is just going around and around inside your body, when we're able to open that up instead of going round and around and around, we're able to open that up and move that out of us. We create something really magical. So let's dive into today's episode. And the first thing I want to say is, from a personal stance, I don't think I would be doing I know I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today in the ways that I am doing it and creating the things that I'm creating with the certainty and with the joy and the enthusiasm, all the things that I didn't believe were possible for me. I'm sure that that wouldn't be available to me if I didn't have the brain that I do. And know that my work is this message of be free from anxiety. And the freedom comes in the strategies of knowing how to navigate this. My brain is still very lit. My brain still wants to send me curveballs and send me off in directions that are not helpful for me. That freedom comes in knowing I know what to do with it now. I know how to shut it down. I know how to not listen to it. I know how to go against it, even though it's saying like you're going to die if you don't do the way that. No, that's where freedom lives. And I know that it's been learning to be able to do that with a brain that is so loud and incessant, that has given me this fuel inside me that has propelled my life in directions that I couldn't have consciously conceived a few years ago when I was back as a teacher, just living a really regular life. So it gets to be this good thing. And the process, I love alchemy. I love Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. It was one of the first books that I read on this journey, and I really resonated. And it's only been a few years down the line that I've kind of made the links of, I love this principle of alchemy, of being able to turn something that isn't spangly or sparkly, and you wouldn't necessarily want to lug some lead around with you, would you? That was like the traditional turning base metals into gold. You wouldn't want to be lugging around big pieces of lead. But gold, something precious, like being able to turn the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want into something really valuable and precious and unique. That process of alchemy is pretty much the process that I teach, but it's not an external process. And the quick fix plum just literally just shut out. I didn't know I was going to talk about her here, but so often the conscious mind has us convinced that the things that we want do lie in the gold and having the things outside of us. But that's when we live this life where it doesn't matter what we get and what level we reach, it never feels like enough. The alchemy that I teach, you still get to eat the plums, but they're delicious and juicy. You still get to have the external reward. You still get to have the gold, but it comes as a byproduct. And then it's like, oh, that's extra. Like, that's lovely. The alchemy that I'm talking about is this external process. And I want to talk you through the process of how it tangibly works. Now, I became really interested in the undertones of this world after I'd spent my life being a realist, and then my life wasn't going the way that I wanted it to. So I had this awakening in the woods, and I've spoke about it in detail in different spaces and places. If it's a story you want to hear, I can send it to you. But I had this awakening in the woods, and I had this really strong information passed to me of there is more than this. Seek underneath what you can consciously sense with your senses. Go beyond. There's more, Emma. And so I became really interested, and I started to study spiritual scriptures, and so much of the more traditional methods of understanding that there's more in this universe, they rely very heavily on faith and hope and belief, and my brain isn't too lit for that. it will take me so far, and then my brain's like, yeah, but how? Yeah, but why? Like, so what I found to be incredibly helpful was quantum physics, actually learning about the atomic structure of this universe, learning how everything is just made up of the teeny tiny atoms of the same stuff. It's just composed somewhat differently by the atomic structure of it that makes each element different. I'm like, okay, well, that's wild. So actually, everything that seems concrete and matter is just this culmination of all of these little parts put together to make a whole. Well, that I can get behind this. Oh, and the space between everything actually has mass, and there's atomic mass within this space, even though it feels like openness, it's not necessarily. And how about radio waves and Wi-Fi that you can't actually see, but you know that it's there because you can sense it. And it we have different electronic devices that are sensitive now enough to be able to pick up on it, but we can't cognitively see it or sense it. Oh, I like this more. And so manifesting was huge at the time. I was really stepping into this. I got a handle on my brain. I understood how to shut down my brain. I understood that there was more that my brain wasn't going to understand. So I was diving into this element, and manifesting was really big. And like, I read The Secret and I fell in love. I was like, yes. But this conscious part of me and this wants to explore and wants to understand was really loud. So I went on this mission and this journey to be able to use the techniques of manifesting that I really like, I really love, but I see so many people being frustrated by them. I think one is because their brain is so loud and so lit that you can't actually get the frequency to be able to project it out into the universe, which is what manifesting is. I think a big part of it is that for so many of us. And that's why whenever you come into my world, like, that's the work we do. We do the formula, we look at the brain, we look at the cognition, we make sure that the messaging's there, we make sure that you can interrupt anything that isn't that. But I also believe that we can get lost in the strategies and the systems of manifesting, and we don't truly know how to energize our body to be able to fuel that message once we've gained the clarity on it, to, to fuel that message up and out. I think Manifesting can be like writing it out 3, 6, and 9 times, and there's power to that. Like all of these things are really powerful, and the messages and the meanings go beyond what we know in the Western world. But it's when you can systemize and scientifically see, oh, I'm going to energize the energy that you can measure with different apparatus, like the heart energy, the brain. You can put little probes on your brain and measure them. I'm going to energize my internal energies, and I'm going to move that energy up so that I can literally push that message up out into the universe. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the practicalities of doing that. But why would you want to do that? And it's because knowing the thing that you want and being able to fuel it enough to go out, what you want already exists in the quantum. It already exists in waveform. And whenever my brain is like, what the heck does that mean? I always think about the science experiment that has blown scientists' minds as soon as they found it. And it's the double slit test. And that is where maybe you know it, but maybe you don't. So if you don't, I'm going to explain it. That's where they put light down a tube, and they put it towards a paper that has 2 slits in it. When that light is being consciously observed, that means that when somebody is looking over it, trying to like measure it, trying to understand it, that light, the waves of light collapse into matter and move through, because that matter then has to behave as you would expect light to behave and move through the spaces, and it gets marked on a backboard. But this is the wild thing. When nobody's watching it and they just leave it to do whatever it's going to do, and it's just going to land on that back paper, and they're just going to take that back paper, that wave matter continues to behave as wave until it hits that backboard. So instead of having those 2 slits and having all of those particles measure in the main pretty equal on both sides, it's just this splatter. The waveform moves as waveform and moves however the heck it wants, because it's as waveform. It doesn't behave. So when the conscious awareness presents itself to the atomic matter, to the waveform, it drops into reality. And that's how manifesting works. It requires you to consciously conceive and connect with that message for it to collapse into reality. So we need, because so much of what we want to manifest doesn't exist in our current reality, what's for us to do is to be able to gain enough momentum, enough clarity. Number one, enough clarity that your brain knows exactly what it wants, and it can stick and hold that frequency to project it out into the world. That's number one. And number two is that there's enough clarity, as part of number one, there's enough clear roots within you to be able to move that energy up and out. But then you need the fuel to be able to really push and project that frequency up into the universe, because it doesn't exist in your current surroundings. Cognitively and sensory, it doesn't exist. So you can't figure out a plan. You can't write about it. You can't write it 3, 6, and 9 times. You can't visualize it because it exists outside of what is known to you right now. Even if you look at the pictures, even if you see it and there's a disconnect between your brain because your brain's not experiencing it. And yes, you can visually rehearse it, but again, that requires a lot of clarity in the brain to be able to hold that and perceive it as real. If you have a brain that is anxious or traumatized or has ADHD or has autism that bounces all over the place, being able to take that frequency that you don't know because it doesn't exist here, to hold on to that and be able to project it out hard enough and far enough into the universe for it to align with a frequency that is the only way it gets to collapse into reality. And because that reality doesn't exist right now, it needs to go pretty far. So imagine a bottle of sparkling water. It's a good metaphor for this. Imagine that you've left the lid off that sparkling bottle of water for weeks, and you put the lid back on and you shake it and you open it up, and you're going to use the fuel of that to project your wish into the universe. The thing you want to manifest into the universe. You're going to shake that bottle, and you can shake it into for all kingdom come, and you're going to take the bottle off, and it's just going to go tss, and it's going to be a complete anticlimax. Or you can get all of that energy inside a fresh, brand new bottle of sparkling water, all of the high functioning anxiety that you have masked for your entire life because you've been taught to do it a certain way to please everybody else around you because it made your life easier. All of that energy is like every little bubble, every piece of gas inside that sparkling bottle. Like, you have got a lot of it. Every time your overthinking brain wants to just go wild, and you just sit there being like, I need to act like a regular person because that would be nuts if I actually did what my brain's telling me to. All of that energy inside this bottle with the lid on, because we've been capping it for our whole lives. We've got a friggin' fire hose of sparkling water. So if we can gain the clarity, and we can tell our brain to just shut the funk up over and over again when it's trying to take us off on one, we can get clear on what it is that we want. And then we can utilize and use all of that kinesthetic energy that is within that sparkling bottle of water. And we can energize it to such a point that we can take the lid off, and we can put just on the top of that lid, this is what I really friggin' well want. So kingdom come. And that, I believe, that is what has enabled me personally to create tangible results in my life that don't make sense, that are out of this world, that come out of nowhere, because I've learned to harness that energy in such a way that it is a fuel now for that. And I've been doing this now for a good few years, and it doesn't run out. It's almost like I've allowed that energy to come out, but now I've got a clear path. So it doesn't require the same kind of force to burst through those places that were blocked up. It's like, it's this continual flow. So don't let your brain come in being like, yeah, but what do you do then? It's like, you've got the alignment, you've got the connection. Like, you can literally, it feels like you've got a landline to the universe being like, hey, babes, we're doing this next. So it's not going to run out. Just, you don't need to keep putting yourself in rubbish situations to get some more of that like trauma fuel. You use what you've got, and then you connect that direct connection, and then you can just manifest. And I like to call this, instead of manifesting, because it's more practical, it's more science, it's more like move your energy in this way, feel it in this center, move the energy through that center. Now let's allow it to, I call it outcome engineering. So you know your outcome, and then you engineer the energy inside you to be able to create that. So let me know how that lands. Let me know if, as you're exploring that, you're like, that makes sense. Yes, I can feel the energy inside me. Yes, it feels like that bottle of water. Yes, it feels like it wants an outlet and it wants to go somewhere. That makes sense. Let me know what you think about my interpretation of quantum physics, which I don't have any qualifications. We went to see Brian Cox, and I was sat with scientists, and he was talking about stuff, and they were being like, we were all there getting it, and they was slowly dropping off, and I'm like, oh my God, I still am there. And it's not cognitive, it's because it's an experience, and I know Brian Cox must experience this. It's being able to just take the little bits, whatever it is that I've spoken about today, whatever little bits land for you, taking those and being curious around them, and watching your brain want to be like, really, I wonder if you know lots of manifesting techniques and you're feeling somewhat frustrated. Maybe you're like me, maybe like manifesting you love and you're excited about, but you were always meant to be an outcome engineer. You were meant to take the science. Your brain's lit. It can't just quietly go about manifesting like people who are really in their divine feminine. Maybe you are more of like the science and the outcome, and I'm going to bring the pieces together and I'm going to put it out into the universe, and I know that will create and it will collapse. So let me know. Let me know how it lands for you. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for being here with me today. Much love.